The story of the Senegalese tirailleurs of World War II and those that fought in southern France and at the Maginot Line at the start of the war is a story that needs to be told, and is one that is not very often told. And thankfully, the Battlefield 5 team at DICE was able to tell this story through the war story Tirailleurs. Now, I know at the time you're seeing this, the new war story about The Last Tiger's already come out, but I'm recording this beforehand. As in my previous video, I stated that I have family over, so I'm pre-recording some videos for you guys. But anyways, let's get started with the video. So, welcome to Jaws Gaming. Today we're going to be talking about the Tirailleurs war story. So the first thing I want to talk about is just the overall history of the French tirailleurs and how they had a much more difficult battle, not just at home as many of you would think, but also on the battlefield themselves. You see, through the war story, there is a scene where you're coming through and several tirailleurs have been slaughtered, and you hear German soldiers saying the captain doesn't want any more tirailleur prisoners, and they shoot another tirailleur prisoner. And that's just one part of just how between a rock and a hard place these guys were. You see, at the beginning of the war, when they were defending the Maginot Line, the Germans were so infuriated that the French would put up what the Nazis deemed to be inferior people against them, that after the surrender of French forces, they non-discriminately, or I should say very discriminately, slaughtered all the tirailleurs that they had captured. Tirailleurs that had surrendered peacefully at their country was laying down arms. They had been defeated. They were, they had given up and they were just ready to be taken prisoner, but instead they were killed like animals. And this just goes to show, between getting inferior weaponry and equipment from the French army anyways, they go and fight the battle and they aren't even treated the way as humans. They aren't even treated as humans. And it's just an extremely sad story that continues not just during the war, but long after the war as well, as I'm going to get to later in the video. So, the man telling the story, Deme, I should say, he talks about not only the inferior equipment, and we see the mistreatment from the Nazi soldiers. He also, he's talking to Idrissa, his brother, and his brother says, he's saying, oh, well, we should go do this, we'll be remembered. And he says, we're welcome to France. It's kind of the intro where he talks about it. You kind of get a glimpse of the difference between the treatment of the normal French soldier versus the treatment of him, and he kind of gets a view of that, even though he comes in kind of naive, kind of fiery, wants to go take these positions. He really wants to do this for France, a homeland that he has never seen. And he's sitting there digging in the dirt, in the mud, in the rain, and they finally get their opportunity. But it took that long, and it wasn't just the tirailleurs that went through this. You look at the Tuskegee Airmen with the Americans, look at the Harlem Hellfighters with the Americans, obviously the Germans didn't have any colonial troops. They wouldn't dare. They were strictly against that. But even in Russia, the Russo-Siberian troops played a huge role for the Russian army, but are very, very seldomly talked about in the history books, and that's what I've been trying to get to this whole time. I know. I need to get to the point faster. But there's a part where Deme says, or no, not Deme. Idrissa's talking to Deme, and he says, the winners write the history books, and even then, not everything is written down. And it's just so true. You don't realize it. Imagine all the things that have happened, whether it's heroic or tragic, that we have not heard about in history. And that really hit me while doing this war story, because originally I mentioned in my previous video on Monday that I probably wasn't going to do another war story video. Well, I was sitting here recording this one, and you said that. Just really, that one hit me. I was like, I really need to do a video on this one. And, you know, the story of the Tirailleurs actually around this time period, it really kind of takes a turn for the worst for quite a while. In 1944, in, I believe it was Algeria, I want to say. It was, let me take a look really quick. It doesn't say. There's the Tirailleurs Massacre. Tirailleurs, I'll put the text on screen. Tirailleurs Massacre of 1944. So what that basically was, the French Senegalese soldiers were at camp, and they had, you know, they said they were going to commit mutiny because they weren't going to get paid the same pensions after the war. And, you know, why keep fighting if I lose my leg and I can't work, I'm not going to get my pension? Seriously? Or even just being in any soldier who deserves their pension. Doesn't matter where you're from. If you serve that country, you should get that same pension as the soldier next to you. Just, you know, I mean, we know this. Skin color shouldn't matter. It's just you're fighting for the same cause, the same country. You're fighting the same battles. Why do you get treated differently? And just their story is so sad, but so important for everyone to know. And after the Tirailleurs Massacre, where French soldiers, white French soldiers, opened fire and killed 35 African soldiers because they were in a riot, Charles de Gaulle, to prevent any further mutinies around the country, which they had issues with in the First World War, he came out and sat down with the Senegalese people, and they had a little, you know, they figured out everything out about pensions and how they should be paid, because the French soldiers weren't just getting pensions and the Africans weren't. The French soldiers were also getting pensions with adjustments to inflations. That's like next level good. Like, if you were a French soldier, you were living good. But anyways, as the war went on, and there's a scene at the end of the war story where Deme takes a picture with the French captain, and it's just so sad because the picture slowly erases all the black soldiers from the picture, and that is just awful. And it's sad because it's true. Again, another true thing that happened. You know, the after the liberation of Paris, Charles de Gaulle put in a process called blanchiment, which translates kind of roughly to making things white again. And it was so bad that, due to the French population being so low on white males, when they liberated Paris for the parade, the French went and got Spanish white men to fill in the areas where French black men would have stood, just so they wouldn't have black and white soldiers stand side by side, which is just a tragedy. These guys fought for your ideals, for your nation. Some of them even wanted to be French. And that's how you treat them. Tell them you're an inferior citizen. You're not a part of this. What you did doesn't matter. It never happened. It doesn't exist. And that is the tragedy of the Tirailleurs. No matter what they could have done, they were always going to be replaced with what they called familiar faces. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into my video. I know it's kind of a downer video, but I felt like I really had to do it. To me, you know, it was just a very well told story, and it's a very true one. It's something that not a lot of people know about, and I feel like any way to help people learn about that part of history and things that happen that they don't teach in school, I feel like is very important, because history is such a broad spectrum of things that, you know, there's the things, the generic come-over things that everyone knows about, and there's the things that you don't hear about. And I feel like the things that you don't hear about are sometimes way more important than the things you do hear about. It just helps shape your view of the world. And, you know, it's the same as anything. Any decision you want to make on anything, you want it to be educated, you want it to be correct. So, you know, I just feel like it's a story that needs to be put out there. You always have to know the mistakes of the past so that you don't repeat them in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button. If you would like to see more content of mine, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to leave your thoughts down below. I want to hear your thoughts on the Tirailleurs, or even if you also have a bit of history that we didn't cover today, then let me know down below, and I'd love to talk to you guys. Speaking of which, you should also check me out on Twitter at JawsGames. I'll leave links down the description below. I also do Twitch now, so I'll have just a link to that down below as well. If you want to check me out on a live stream, you can talk to me there as well. We just kind of do it for fun. We got a few people that just kind of come do the streams. We talk about gaming, games we enjoy. Anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. You guys are awesome, and I will see you guys on the battlefield.